Hi, this is Tim from UK Home Gym, your home for UK-specific independent home gym tips and advice. And today I'm going to talk to you about maybe a slightly different way, a different approach to building a home gym. Now, I think most people sort of approach, building a home gym by thinking about what equipment they need. And I think that maybe that is a slightly backwards way of thinking. Maybe it might be more helpful and I'm saying this as someone who's made all the mistakes that you could possibly make in building a home gym. So I've sort of wised after the event, but bear that in mind. Maybe it's a better thing to do to think about it in terms of what lifts are most important to you, and if you can narrow that down to 5 lifts. Now I'm narrowing it down to 5 for the purpose of this video. You may have 6, you may have 4. It doesn't really make any difference, but for the purpose of this video, I'm going to say, imagine you could boil it down to 5 lifts that for you are the most important, or that you identify as the most important, and then see if you can build a home gym around that. Now, doing it that way may be very beneficial for you if those lifts are very important for you, and it may also help you if you're on a budget, because you might be able to avoid buying particular items that you don't need quite so much. And that could really help you, have you start off with a very good functional gym that you don't need to do too much to, and that maybe, a few years down the line when your budget stretches to it again, you can improve it in whichever way you see fit, having used it for those purposes already, right? So what are these 5 lifts? I'm going to talk briefly about why I selected them. Now, just one caveat before I talk about them. I'm not really talking about bodybuilding here. I'm talking about longevity and strength, general strength. And longevity, when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about these are lifts that will help you live a healthy life for as long as you're here, basically, as long as you're on the planet. I really find that as we get older, as people get older, you can really see the difference in people who've got a natural level of strength to fall back on and those who don't. So if you want to stay active in your later years, that really is something that you need to bear in mind, and maybe these lifts can help you do that. I'm not a doctor, I don't know anything about those kind of things, but I do know about things that have helped me stay active and stay running and doing all the things that I like to do. And I can see the effect on other people. Anyway, enough waffle about that. I'm going to talk to you about these lifts. Now, the first one I picked out is the squat. I prefer the low bar squat, but you could go for a front squat, you could go for a back squat, you could go for a high bar squat, you could go for goblet squat. All of these things are great variations, but anyway, the squat I think is fantastic for, let's simplify this and just say that the front part of your legs and various other sort of stabilizing muscles. Okay, let's just leave it at that. The second exercise I would go for there is the deadlift. Again, loads of different variations of this. I won't go into all the different variations, but let's just say the conventional deadlift is my favorite. You may prefer a slightly different version, whatever. That, if we simplify it, is going to be a great exercise for the rear part of your legs, the posterior part of your legs, and various stabilizing muscles as well. Okay, so those two. The next one I would go on to is the overhead press, the standing overhead press. I feel like that is, pushing things overhead is quite a neglected thing for most people who are not sort of, very enthusiastic about the gym. Most people find themselves quite weak pushing overhead. So, that's something I think if there's anything you find yourself weak on, that's where you need to sort of put the effort into. So the standing overhead press is not just great for your shoulders, it's great for the entirety of your arm, the entirety of your your upper pecs as well, certain back stabilizing muscles, lower back, a lot of muscles in your leg as well, for stabilizing and so on. Anyway, that's a fantastic exercise for that. The next one I would go for is the pull-up. You might prefer chin-ups, you might prefer neutral grip pull-ups, whatever. Doesn't really matter. Just that exercise of pulling yourself up over a bar. Wonderful, really good. Now you may say, well, hang on a second, where's the progressive overload in that? Well, you can wait for your pull-ups, and I think that's great. So with all of these exercises, progressive overload is the big thing that I'm really sort of focused on. And the last one is, drum roll, bit of a surprise, the hanging leg raise. I think you do need, a lot of us are quite weak in the core. And I think that if you do need something that specifically targets the core. Now, you may say, well, you use your core, you have to engage your core in the squat and the deadlift and so on. That's fine. It's all isometric there. I want something a bit more dynamic. I want the core to be moving around a bit. And I find that the hanging leg raise is a really, really good exercise for doing that. I think that it's, if I had to choose one ab exercise, I would be torn between that and the ab wheel. But I don't think that you can really scale the ab wheel. You can't really do anything progressive overload with the ab wheel. Whereas the hanging leg raise, yeah, you can definitely do progressive overload with that. I mean, you may start off with only being able to sort of do a hanging knee raise, and then you may sort of be able to sort of bring that up to a full leg raise. You bring it up higher and higher. Once you're very capable with that, you could also look at weighting it a little bit as well, maybe putting some ankle weights on or something like that. But you have a lot of options with that. So what do you need to do about that? Now, I think you can get 5 pieces of equipment, and these 5 pieces of equipment will help you be able to do all of those exercises and plenty more as well. But if you were to just zoom in on those 5 exercises and say, right, just to start off with, I'm going to do one of those every day, or I think you could probably do more than one of those every day. You could probably do 2 every day, so that you doubled it. You did like squat twice a week, you did deadlift twice a week, you did hanging leg raise twice a week, and so on. Maybe you can do 2 of those, switch them around on the different days. Anyway, the equipment that you need to do all of these things, number 1 is a squat rack. Now, you could possibly get away with using a half rack, what they call a half rack, for this. I would advise really getting like a sort of power cage type thing, where you've got 4 posts of the same size, and you've got a safety in the middle. I think that is probably the best thing to do. The reason why I like that the most is because usually they will have a pull-up bar at the top, and that solves your pull-up kind of and hanging leg raise questions straight away. Now, if you had a half rack, maybe you could dangle off it and put it at its highest setting and dangle off a barbell or something like that on there. I don't know. I'm not really a big fan of that. I think that you'd be better off with a fixed pull-up bar, the kind that comes on a power cage. So a power cage, yeah, I think it is expensive. You can get some budget versions, but I would say, look, this is the one thing that you're going to spend a bit of money on, and it needs to be good. And you're going to use it for the rest of your life, hopefully, and maybe pass it on to your children or whatever. Get a decent one. I'm not saying get the most expensive one around. There are plenty around with all sorts of bells and whistles on that you don't really need, and that might be too big for your space, whatever space that you have. But do get like a decent standard one. I mean, spend a couple of £100 on it. I know that's a lot of money, but it really is worth it. The second item that you're really going to need is a barbell. Obviously, if you're going to do these, things like a deadlift and a squat, so you're going to find that very difficult to do without a barbell. You could do, work with dumbbells, kettlebells, and stuff like that. But I do think that the barbell and, it's the barbell back squat is the superior squat for me. Front squat also is great, but you're not going to get the same thing from a goblet squat as you are from the barbell back squat. And the same goes for the deadlift. I think that if you want to do, if you really want to focus on the deadlift, the barbell is probably your best piece of equipment. You could conceivably get a trap bar instead, but I don't think that it has as many. It doesn't have as many functions as a barbell does. You can use a barbell for a lot more. And of course, you're going to be able to use the barbell for the overhead press. So you've got your squat rack, power cage, you've got your barbell. Now you're going to need some plates, some weight plates. I guess, it's a bit cheeky of me to call that a piece of equipment, but, that is, you're not going to be able to do anything without that. You're not going to be able to do any progressive overload without your weight plates. Which kind of weight plates to get is a different question. I've got different videos on that. Maybe you can explore those if that's of interest to you. But for the purpose of this video, we'll just skip over that. What else? I think that you probably are going to need a mat. And I would advise some kind of thick mat for your deadlifts. I think that, whatever surface you're going to deadlift on, probably best to have some kind of mat, some kind of platform, something. And I would advise getting something designed for, housing horses. Now, you don't have to get loads of these and put them all over your floor or, cut them all up and stuff like that. Some people do that. You can just get one sort of 6x4 mat, keep it in a corner somewhere, bring it out when you need to deadlift. It should be enough to sort of protect the concrete floor if you are doing this in a garage like I am. And the last thing that you're going to need is some collars for your barbell and your weight plates. You do need, there are some exercises like the bench press where I wouldn't use collars at all. Probably the overhead press, you could probably get away without using collars, but I just like anything where, anything where the bar could move very slightly, like a squat, it could move very slightly. I don't want it to I don't want plates slipping around. So, I would definitely get a pair of collars, and the kind of collars that I like are the sort of big, either like a old school sort of metal ones that you can screw on, or like the sort of plastic clamp type collars, which I think are a good purchase, not very expensive. So if you were to have those things there, you could do plenty of other things. If you were then to add a bench, an adjustable bench, you would be able to add a whole load of different exercises to the equation. But if you were trying to keep things really simple and basic and just build your strength off 5 lifts, I think those 5 pieces of equipment would be the first ones I would get, sort of looking back retrospectively, basically. So I wonder what you think about all of this. Are there 5 lifts that you would base your sort of home gym purchases on? Are there 5 pieces of equipment that you think that no home gym owner should be without? Please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Please also check out our website, that's ukhomegym.com. And please remember to like, share, subscribe. All of that really does help me to grow the channel. That's all for today. Again, please do check out our website, that's ukhomegym.com, and I'll see you next time on UK Home Gym.